Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. We are from Group 1. In this video, we would like to discuss and to present our presentation about Chapter 11, the Convention of Drama. First of all, I'm going to introduce myself and my team members. The first presenter is me, Fransiska Tri Wulandari. The second presenter is Faradiwa, Jihan, Hielwana. The third presenter is Mulyati. The fourth presenter is Putri Sofiki. And the fifth presenter is Rara Rey Maellina. And the last presenter is Rizky Amelia. Okay, let's start. When you are studying a novel or a poem, the writer will have used a variety of techniques to bring the text to life, to allow you to visualize it in your mind. It will be structured in chapters, paragraphs, or verse, and dialogue will be laid out using the correct punctuation. However, a piece of drama has its own convention. Drama has convention which the audience need to understand. If you were to watch a cowboy film, but you never seen before, you would probably get very confused, right? When there was a first spike, there would be loud and chairs would break in pieces if anyone was hit with one. The reason of this is that we must recognize the convention of cowboy film. So, what is a convention? A convention is an agreement between author and audience that a situation or idea will be presented in a particular way. Convention need not mirror actual life in every detail. For instance, in cowboy films, fights are accompanied by loud cracking noises. Punch don't actually sound like this, but the noises are accepted as a convention indicating that the fighting is tough. The stage, setting, place, and time and characters are included in convention. The audience see an open space over which actors move but know that it represents and so treat it as a living room or a battlefield. The audience also knows that actors are real people, yet it regards them as kings or prime ministers. It knows too that a place is meant to portray the action of weeks, months, moons, or even years, and it accepts that a great deal of time has passed, even if the performance only lasts 2 or 3 hours. So, understanding drama also includes understanding convention. So the aim of this chapter is to introduce you to some of this. This convention of drama divided into 3. Convention of construction, convention of language, and convention of action. Okay, we start in convention of construction, acts, and scenes. Poems are separated into verse and books are separated in chapters. Likewise, plays too are also divided into smaller chunks. Plays tend to be divided into longer sections called acts, and acts are often divided into scenes. So, do the act division correspond to the important stage in the action of the play? It depends, such as in Peter Shaffer, he divides the Royal Hunt of the Sun into 2 acts, both of which have 12 scenes. The first act, called The Hunt, shows how Pizarro's army captured the Inca king and massacres the native. The second is called the kill. It's concerned with the relation between Pizarro and the king and climaxes in the king's murder. Thus, the convention of dividing a play into acts is made to serve the meaning of the play. So Pizarro's army first hunts the Sun King and then it kills him. But different in Shakespeare. In Shakespeare, acts do not correspond to important stage in the action. He divides his plays into 5 acts. Most of the plays consist not of an action in 5 sections, but a twofold movement. Even scattered pace still increases breaks, and from then on the play mounts to its conclusion, such as in Julius Caesar as a twofold movement, the growth of the plot to kill Caesar and the campaign against those who killed him. The turning point or the crisis is in Act 3, Scene 1 and 2. In Scene 1, Caesar is killed, and in Scene 2, Antony skillfully turns the crowd against the plotters. Okay? The next presentation will be delivered by Faradiwa.
Conventions of construction. It is a convention that a long period of time can be represented in a play that only takes 2 or 3 hours to perform. This means that the structure of a play, the way it is put together, must convey the passing of time. This is usually done in one or both of 2 ways. The first, time is assumed to have passed between scenes or acts, and the second, time can pass quickly within a scene. In general, modern plays follow the first way, and Shakespeare and his contemporaries both. Indications of time passing. Shakespeare does not employ that convention, so he indicates that time has passed between scenes by making characters refer to it. One of the most notable examples of this is in The Winter's Tale, when Shakespeare introduced the figure of time, who announces that 16 years have passed. Another example, Christopher Marlowe's Dr. Faustus closes with a scene in which Faustus waits in dread and horror for the devil to take him off to hell. His speech lasts 57 lines and begins, "Ah, Faustus, thou hast lo but 1 bare hour to live." 50 lines later, an hour has passed. The clock strikes, and the Faustus despairingly cries, "Oh, it's straight. Nobody turns to the air, or Lucifer will bear thee quick to hell." When you read the scene, the quick passing of time might seem odd, and it's a convention that you must accept. In plays, time can be elastic. In case of Dr. Faustus, however, Beloved creates such a mental agony in the 57 lines that enough emotion to last an hour has been generated. In other words, the emotional tension of this scene helps us to accept the convention. Time devoted to important events. The convention that time is elastic in plays that can be used by playwrights to indicate what is dramatically important. In general, a great deal of time is devoted to important events. The flashback. There is one other ways of indication the passing of time that affect the structure of a play. The convention of the flashback. This convention has been used very effectively in modern plays. It allows the playwrights to contrast past and present, and to show how the present is to be understood in the light of the past. Playwrights use flashback because this depict a scan over a psychological explanation for a character's behavior. Therefore, it is worthwhile asking of any play in which flashbacks occur. The next point, conventions of language, verse and prose. It is a convention in many plays that characters speak in verse and prose. Some characters always use one or the other, but many use both. Shakespeare, Marlowe, Johnson, and Middleton write in both verse and prose, and though playwrights such as Congreve, Sheridan, Wilde, and Shaw usually stick to prose, the convention has not died out. In this century, T.S. Eliot, who is regularly set in the public examination, has written drama in verse. When you study a play that is written in both verse and prose, you should ask two questions. The question number one: why do some characters speak in verse and others in prose? In Shakespeare and his contemporaries, the important characters usually speak verse, whereas the minor ones use prose. The citizens, however, are given prose because they are both minor characters and members of the lower classes. The distinction between prose and verse is, however, not always as clear as that. In Julius Caesar, there is an important character of high social standing, called Casca, who speaks prose for much more of time. The reason of this is that he is a blunt, plain-speaking man. Prose, in other words, is given to him because it suits his down-to-earth character. What effects do verse and prose create? Verse is usually more dramatically effective than prose because it uses all the resources of language, its figures of speech, rhythms, and sounds. Example: T.S. Eliot uses the contrast between verse and prose in Murder in the Cinderella. When the knights have murdered Thomas, they explain why they have done it. Eliot, by giving them prose, shows that they are narrow, unimaginative, and bodily men. They don't really understand what they have done, so all they can offer as explanation are unemotional, everyday reasons. One, for instance, tries to persuade the audience that Thomas was a psychological case who, in effect, committed suicide. Eliot contrasts his lack of feeling with the words of the priest who warns the death of Thomas. The priest, of course, is given first to express his overwhelming grief and bewilderment. I think that's enough for me. Next presentation, thank you. Next presentation will be delivered by Sri Mulyati.
Convention of language, characters talking about themselves. Using the third person, if you look back to Brutus' speech quotes above, you will see that he refers to himself in the third person. This is a convention that often puzzles people who are new to Shakespeare. If you can recognize what is going on, you may be able to appreciate that it is a way of speaking that can make the occasion and the characters impressive and grand. For example, when Caesar refused to listen to requests, he talks about his firmness in the third person. Be not fond to think that Caesar bears such a rebel blues that will be tethered from the true quality, with that which Malchus fools Caesar, saying that he will not give into the things that he hath persuaded to change their reminds speaking of himself, and the third person helps him to create an impressive and grand sense of firmness, because it presents the idea that even Caesar himself is looking on with admiration at such a determined decision. Dramatic self-disclosure. Shakespeare often gives a character a speech which has the function of informing the audience who he or she is. This is sometimes called dramatic self-disclosure or dramatic self-revelation. Shakespeare often resorts to it when a character first appears. For example, the timing of the show opens with the arrival in Padua of Lucentio and his servant Tranio. Shakespeare makes Lucentio deliver these lines to Tranio. Here, let us breathe and happily institute a course of learning and ingenious studies. Pisa, renowned for great citizens, gave me my being and my father first. A merchant agreed traffic through the world. There is no way in which this line can be regarded as normal dialogue. Lucentio has no need to inform Tranio by they are in Padua and Lucentio's father is. But how then do the lines work? They are a statement, a public objective one, of who Lucentio is and why he in Padua. They are not made to future relationship between the characters on the stage or to show us what and how the speaker thinks. They are spoken slowly for the benefit of the audience. We need to know these things, so Shakespeare adopts the mode of dramatic self-disclosure to tell us. Convention of language, you and thou. The distinction between you and thou does not usually rise to problems. It is, however, an important one to understand because it indicates the emotional tone of the scene. The distinction is that you is used when the occasion is formal and speaker wants to remind listeners of the social difference, but thou when the speaker are cool and the mood is friendly and intimate. Example: there is a striking example in the second scene of Hamlet, where the new King Claudius wants to be friendly, letters the son of his chief minister. His speech to him is full of this and those and ands. Take their fair however, let us stand design, and they that versus stand it at table. They fair, stand design, they best graces, and they will. We can feel that Claudius is going out of his way to appear friendly. When, however, he turns Hamlet, the tone changes. How is that the could still hang on you? That is chilly the way he holds back the word you until the end of the line indicates that Claudius wants Hamlet to see that is not going to treat him either as an equal or a friend from the first start of the play. Therefore, the tension between them has been established. Whenever you come across a change from one form of address to the other, it is a good idea to ask, is it important that the characters are using you or thou? You will usually find that he can tell you something important about the attitude of the character to each other. Okay, the next presentation will be delivered by Putri.
Conventions of language, the soliloquy. So, what is soliloquy? A soliloquy occurs when a character is either alone or isolated upon the stage and speaks aloud his or her thoughts. It is a convention in Shakespeare to play soliloquies at the beginning or at the end of a scene, although he doesn't always do this. This soliloquy contains expressions of character's thoughts and feelings to himself, both when there are other characters and especially when the character is alone. Soliloquies are usually of two kinds. The first one, public soliloquy, and the second one is private soliloquy. Okay, for the first one, public soliloquies. In a public soliloquy, a character openly addresses the audience. It is interesting that it is often the villain who does this. Iago in Othello and Richard III in the play of that name openly talk about what they are going to do. There is something rather disturbing about the way they buttonhole an audience and share their wicked plans with them. This is particularly disturbing in the case of Richard III, who is charmingly honest about what he wants to do. Next, for the second one, private soliloquy. A private soliloquy creates a very different effect. The audience is not addressed but listens into or overhears the innermost thoughts of a character. The audience does not share their thoughts but is aware of hearing the private questioning that is going on in a character's mind. You should of course write about such soliloquies in a different way from the public ones. Okay, the next slide. The example of public soliloquy. I will read it. Plots have I laid, inductions dangerous, by drunken prophecies, libels, and dreams, to set my brother Clarence and the king in deadly hate the one against the other, and if King Edward be as true and just, as I am saddle false and treacherous, this day shall Clarence closely be mewed up. In that public soliloquy, Richard reveals everything, the plots he has laid, the goodness of King Edward, and his gleeful expectation that Clarence will soon be in jail. It is that glee, that relish that audience find charming. This is something you should remember when you write about public soliloquies, because characters talk to us and in the case of Richard, reveal their delight in evil. It is easy to be taken in by them. Therefore, you should bring out in your writing that an audience can know that a character is wicked and yet find him or her attractive. Okay, the next slide. The example of private soliloquy. Listen, for instance, to Hamlet angrily questioning himself. Am I a coward? Who calls me villain, breaks my pet across, plucks off my bird, and blows it in my face? Okay, there is a note. Public and private soliloquies create different effects are appropriate to different dramatic situations. Whenever you have to write about a soliloquy, then you should ask, number 1, in what ways is it appropriate to the character's situation? Number 2, what dramatic effect does it create? Okay, move to the next slide. Conventions of language, the aside. So, what is the aside? The aside is the convention in which a character momentarily turns away from the character to whom he or she is either listening or speaking and addresses the audience directly. Because it is always public, it establishes a relation between character and audience. So, aside is a part of the drama script which contains the words of a character addressed to the audience with the understanding that other characters on the stage do not listen to them. There is a note. Whenever you come across an aside, you should ask, what is the effect of this relation? You will probably find that two effects are very common. Number 1, sympathy for the character. Number 2, humor. Okay, for the first one, sympathy for the character. Example, In the first scene of King Lear, the old king divides his kingdom up between his daughters by asking them to declare their love for him. The youngest, Cordelia, refuses to please her father by playing what she sees as a hypocritical game. Her refusal is quite harsh, but it has also been the experience of audience that they feel sympathy for her. This is not just because she is honest, it is in part due to the fact that throughout the scene she speaks openly to the audience in a series of asides. After a particularly oily speech from one of her hypocritical sisters, Regan, she declares to the audience, "Then poor Cordelia, and yet not so, since I am sure my love's more ponderous than my tongue." Okay, for the second one, humor. Example, Goldsmith frequently uses this device in his delightful play She Stoops to Canker. At one point, Marlowe and Hastings arrive at their intended destination, the home of Mr. Hardcastle, but because of a trick they believe it to be an inn. Hardcastle, of course, knows nothing of this, so cannot understand why they treat him as little more than a servant, and they are puzzled by his over-friendly behavior. Hardcastle, "Here, Mr. Marlowe, here is our better acquaintance." Marlowe, conscious of a side, "A very impudent fellow this, but he is a character and I will humor him a little, sir, my service to you." Hastings, conscious of a side, "I see this fellow wants to give us his company, and forget that he is an innkeeper before he has learned to be a gentleman." Okay, maybe enough for me. Thank you so much. The next presentation will be continued by my friend.
The next point is convention of action, the chorus. A chorus is an individual or group who speaks directly to the audience about the action of the play. A chorus is a group of people that spoke in unison about the action of the characters. First point, the convention of the chorus seems strange because it makes drama a mixed medium. In the stage, there are the actors who are representing the character, but these actors have to join with another actors that openly advertises the artificiality of the stage by refusing to be the others of characters, the others characters, and talking directly to the audience about what's going on. Although it seems strange, but not everything about the chorus is confusing. First, unlike many characters, the chorus can be believed. For example, when the chorus in Romeo and Juliet tell us that the play is about the fearful passage of their death-marked love, we can believe it. That is the plot story of this drama. So we haven't a reason to unbelieve it. The second is, in addition, the chorus is openly helpful. It means the chorus has a role for help the audience to imagine what's going on. For example, the one in Henry V is there to assist or aims the audience to imagine the battlefield of Agincourt. The third point, the most interesting chorus figures are those who serve the function of chorus and characters. So the chorus figures have to show the characters the expression to their audience. Shakespeare decided that something needs to be said, so one character is made to change from his or her role to be a public commentator on events. For example, At the end of Twelfth Night, the twins Viola and Sebastian appears on the stage together, since the whole of drama depends on the fact that they are identical. So somebody have to show this point to the characters and the audience. The next, in a modern play, A Man for All Seasons, that the full development of the chorus figure. Robert Bolt created the common man, who opens and closes the play and also commenting the action. He is also a character of steward, boatman, publican, jailer, foreman of the jury, and finally executioner. Then an interesting use of a figure who is close to being a chorus can be found in Arthur Miller's A View from the Bridge. The name is Alfieri. Alfieri is unlike the common man. He isn't presented in a symbolic way. He is a lawyer of Italian extraction who understand the intense life of New York Italian immigrants. Okay, the next is about convention of action disguise. Disguise in drama is the actors or figures do the disguise on the stage. The important about disguise is disguise presents the opportunities of dramatic. In Shakespeare, there are the effects of the disguise. First, the character can say what they wouldn't otherwise be unable to say. It means the character can say what they shouldn't be able to say. And the second is the character can hear what they wouldn't otherwise be unable to hear. It means the character can hear what they shouldn't be able to hear. Okay, for example, in As You Like It, Orlando is to say to quote Rosalind openly. When Rosalind has disguised herself as a man, she playfully suggests to Orlando that she will pretend to be Rosalind, to be a real Rosalind, so Orlando can court her. Orlando feels able to do that, so he can say what he never dared to say, and Rosalind can hear what she never expected to hear. Their playful courtship is lively. Orlando can be open and straightforward, and Rosalind can willingly accept his proposal. Then I will tell you the dialogue you can see in the book on page 218. Rosalind. But come, now I will be your Rosalind in a more coming on disposition, and ask me what you will, I will grant it. Orlando. Then love me, Rosalind. Rosalind. Yes, faith, will I, Friday and Saturday and all. Orlando. And will you have me? Rosalind. I and 20 such. And the next presentation will be delivered by Rizky Amelia.
Okay, thank you, Rara. Next, I want to explain about conventions of action. They are dance, music, and songs. Those are the elements of convention of action. Shakespeare's plays are full of dance, music, and song. They are not there just to entertain, though they do, but to point to important meanings. It means that in the drama staging, the case of Shakespeare plays or drama not only presents entertainment of dance, music, and songs, but also shows an important meanings in the drama. Okay, let's start to the first one. There is dance. Dancing was thought of as very important in Elizabethan England. This period lasted from 1550 to 1620. It's because it was an expression of peace and harmony between people, and even of the peace and harmony of the universe. Shakespeare closes his comedies with dancing. He is using the convention to indicate that the characters are in perfect harmony with one another. For example, in his masterpiece entitled As You Like It and Much Ado About Nothing, both conclude with dance. In the Much Ado About Nothing, the dance shows in the Act 5, Scene 4, when Benedict said, come on, we are friends. Let's have a dance here. We are married, that we may lighten our own hearts and our wives' heels. Then Leonato said, we'll have dance afterward. Okay, next there is music. Music in Shakespeare is an expression of harmony. For example, in the drama King Lear, Cordelia speaks of her father, the mad King Lear, in these words: "Oh, you kind gods, cure this great breach in his abused nature, the ancient, enduring sense, oh, wind up, of this child-changed father. His madness is seen as lack of harmony, untuned enduring, and hopes for his restoration are expressed as the tuning of musical instrument. Then, a wind up, when he does come around from madness, it is the accompaniment of music. And the last element of convention of action is song. Many of Shakespeare's songs are very appropriate to the scene in which they occur and also to the meaning of the play as a whole. For example, in one scene of Twelfth Night the Drunken, Sir Toby and Sir Andrew ask the clown fast for a song. He sings a plaintive one about love. The words of the song are sadly appropriate to the listeners. So, whenever you find dance, music, or song in Shakespeare, you will find that there are conventions that reveal to you to the significance of the action. So, those are the elements of the conventions of action. The next material is about action within action. This is the last subchapter in the 11th chapter. Occasionally, a playwright frames an action by placing it within another. In Shakespeare, there is example of the taming of the shrew, in which the two scenes of the induction act as an introduction to the play of Cat the Shrew, and Petruchio the man marries her. So, there are two things that we need to be said about action within action. The first one is there is usually a link between the frame and the main action. In both the induction and the main action in the taming of the shrew, there is an emphasis upon sport and trickery. This is clearly important in establishing the mood of the play. Also, the play turned on the issue of identity. So, there is a thematic link between the two parts of the drama. Next, the second one, action within action in Shakespeare, tells us something about the dramatic art. Shakespeare is aware of his own art in virtually every play he wrote. It's interesting to observe that frequently uses an image drawn from the theater, even as in Macbeth at the climax of the play. So, those are the material of subchapter The Convention of Drama in the 11th chapter. I think our explanation is sufficient at this point. We hope that the material we have presented can be useful and give us new knowledge about drama. We apologize if there are so many mistakes from our group. Thank you so much for watching. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.